declaration of public notice. And tonight we'll begin the meeting with our annual reorganization. And we begin by the election of our officers. Before we begin the process, just want to remind the board members of our policy that dictates the process for electing our members or our officers. And so statutorily, of course, we're required to elect the president, vice president, treasurer, and clerk. As far as the process, our policy states that nominations for the board officers shall, at the request of a board member, be by written ballot, and any member receiving a vote is nominated. So the first piece would be, is there such a request to have nominations by written ballot?
I would like to make the request that we do the nominations by written ballot.
Okay, so we will use written ballot for nominations, and then following the nomination process, all those we will have the vote for the position from all those that are nominated. Okay, and so at this time, I would take nominations by written ballot. Tish will hand out your ballots, and this is for the nomination for the position of president.
I wonder what you're accounting for.
I didn't see Susan, it's so strange.
You're good. Because I know where the extra ones were. This is the first thing I'm sitting up here.
Okay, we have three nominees for president. Lorraine Gage, Eric Hartz, and Susan Manning.
Would you read that again, Tish?
Lorraine, Eric, and Susan Manning.
Oh, I would remove my name from the ballot. Thank you very much. Thank you, whoever did that.
Okay, so we have two nominations for the position of president. Request a written ballot then.
Do we have to request that separately, or is that?
Probably should, I think we asked for a request for nominations prior, didn't we? So we should also ask for a request for written ballots, actually secret ballots for the voting process.
For the new members, normally all of our voting has to be open, and for the election of officers, we're allowed to do secret ballots. But somebody has to request it. Nobody requested. Did somebody request it?
So I'm still looking for a request.
I will make said request.
Okay,
So I would make the request that we would do this by written ballot.
okay. So we will proceed with our voting by written ballot. So please vote for one for the position of board president. The nominees are Eric Hartz and Lorraine Gage.
And for the vote number, do we just put number one in?
Yeah, this is first ballot.
Can I get your steps in today?
The most exciting elections of 2016.
With my leg.
Maureen has one vote.
All right, thank you.
Congratulations, Lorraine.
Congratulations, Lorraine.
All right, next is the nomination for vice president. So do we need to do a?
Yeah, sorry.
This meeting is hard on tape.
Now there's a vice.
So Dan, once we make the request for the written ballot, it stays.
For the
I
entire,
don't have to make it.
for the draft for all four positions, thank you. Yeah.
Get like one of those little foot massager things. Put your feet up.
That's my head. Just needed to stretch it out. One day, only a new one.
Yep.
We have two nominees. They are Elizabeth Cook and Eric Hartz.
I withdraw my name. I'm happy with painting our. So I withdraw my name.
So with one
All
nominee,
right.
do we have to, can we just vote?
Yeah, I think you could have a motion to approve with unanimous consent if there's just one nominee.
Well, unanimous consent, just a motion to approve Elizabeth Cook
Yeah.
as vice president. Unanimous consent just means we all agree.
Right.
I move approval of Elizabeth Cook as board vice president.
I second.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion is carried.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Back together again.
All right, next is the election for treasurer.
We do this electronically.
I know.
Survey.
I think, didn't we, like during COVID, we tried, didn't we? Did it work? Did we do it?
Not bad, Zoom had a little feature for
Yeah.
voting, and I think we managed it pretty
I
good.
feel like it's hard on Tish and the environment. It's like we're not meeting sustainability goals right now. So.
Are you kidding? We print so much less paper than we used to.
Yeah, I'm sure that that's true. And like, you can't be in education without a lot of paper.
I mean, I had a whole cabinet full of paper,
Oh, sorry, Tish.
No, you're good.
packets and paper.
Yeah, binders,
Don't
account
exist.
binders.
And they were about as easy to search as they were with the board doc search tools.
Yeah.
Okay, we have three nominees for treasurer, Eric Hartz, Susan Manning, and Peter Sobel.
Okay.
All right. Got ourselves a contest.
You want me treasurer?
No, I am treasurer right now.
Yes.
Do I want to continue to be
That's a
treasurer?
good question.
It's a tough job, Peter.
I know.
There's like. Yes.
Did you ever? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, he's a full board member.
Those look
It's okay. I just assumed there was some, like, I assumed there was a reason.
He was just starting. and then
Bill's
he was
name wasn't on the ballot.
kind of
It's okay.
Oh, because on the list, that's
Maybe it's not
why.
official, but.
Maybe like.
I was thinking that.
No, you're official. As soon as you got sworn in, you're in. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
What?
That's that?
Bill's name
You've been
wasn't
doing
listed.
it, Phil's not on the list.
For anything?
missed that.
For everything?
Oh,
We have
wow.
to go back and,
Correct.
we have to go back and,
Oh.
It's like
Sorry.
Dominion voting system
I think-
situation going on here.
If someone would request.
If we
to-
motion that we like what we already did.
well, it's a, yeah, do you, I mean, are you,
I'm not particularly
I don't-
upset about it. I just,
don't-
I asked if it was because I was appointed versus
No.
elected.
yeah, no,
It's
no,
because
Yeah.
I,
Yeah, it wouldn't make any difference.
You
Do
should-
you want to be president?
that's,
Well, anybody could have written your name on the ballot also.
yeah, but,
Yeah.
I know.
Should we just, do we have to do it, should we start it over?
I think it's up to Phil.
I don't know, because this is a funny.
I'm fine if we just proceed.
You sure?
Hmm? Yeah.
Well, we should at least
Can we
like go
just make-
from the current,
Nobody wrote his name. You could have written your name on his name on the
So
ballot.
from this point on, if you can put his name
Yeah.
on, that would be fine.
Yeah,
You
but
could always
still,
have.
like, his name wasn't
There,
there. so
right.
he wasn't
Right.
checking.
yeah.
Yes, it's not fair, but it's also, I don't think it's procedurally, because like I said, anybody could have
Yeah, but it doesn't invalidate.
written his name in. It doesn't, I don't think it invalidates anything. Because you could have written any name. Anybody could have written any name.
I guess my question is, because we just filed nominations for treasurer, right? We haven't voted, did we vote on treasurer? We just voted on treasurer.
Well, we didn't.
We haven't
we're-
revealed the
We're
vote.
getting the results from that, but we don't.
So should we
know.
go back to treasurer nominations with Phil in the game, or should we just proceed?
I mean, I have extra ballots for treasurer.
Should we just do
It's
that?
like,
one?
you know, like you're part of the.
I
Part of the board, you know?
think we should go back. I
Yeah,
mean,
just
it's-
one.
it's-
Two.
Yeah.
You may be elected treasurer.
Okay,
So-
I should
so
have
it
just-
sounds like it's unanimous. You want Bill to be on the treasurer.
Yeah.
Okay, so start the nomination process.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you, Tish.
We should
And
correct.
No,
should we do
I'm
the same
sorry.
for clerk?
Pardon me?
Should we do the same for clerk, add Phil's name?
Yeah, that'll come next though.
Yeah, but when that comes up, yes.
Okay, so.
Just like one little
this
undo.
will be nomination.
Control Z, is that what that is?
Yeah, right.
Undo. Every board gets one mulligan.
Phil.
You're gonna get nominated now.
I know, now it's gonna be like a sympathy nomination.
Hope you got a strong signature, but.
Don't need a gesture. Not looking for a gesture. Just note in the minutes that I'm insulted and we're good.
Now you know what it's like to live on the islands, right? Phil?
That's right.
It's just
Yeah.
water all around you.
Hold it to our heads, not our hearts.
I like that, Lauren.
Really?
Yeah, are there any requirements for the ballot? What has to be on the ballot? I
No,
mean, it could be
in-
blank.
Sometimes in the past, we just had a blank, people wrote the name.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Like I said, procedurally,
So we
I don't
could
think
do
it's.
that right now.
Right, but I don't want to exclude you.
No, I know, you're
It's a
right,
blank
you're
sheet.
totally right.
And then Tish doesn't have
I
to
just don't
write.
think it invalidates anything.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
You can make it a Kahoot.
Yeah, exactly. Fastest person gets the office. Yeah, we can handwrite our own in, Tish.
Well, I've already done it for these.
All right.
But for the future ones, we
Yeah,
can
we'll
write
just,
it.
we'll
We
just
can just write it ourselves.
Juliana. Juliana.
Okay. Nominations.
This is the nomination for treasurer.
Correct.
Okay, correct.
Oh, nomination, okay, right.
Back to nominating.
I apologize.
Oh, that's okay.
Oh, who are you looking for?
You can.
You may not like to see it. I can always move it. This is next to Jared. Oh, oops. Good.
Okay, so we have different nominees. We have Eric Hartz, Susan Manning, Peter Sopo, and Philip Haven.
Good thing we added it in.
Yeah, look at that.
Here is the ballot. Please feel free to write in a name.
Yes, we will.
Back to vote number 1.
Sorry, Tish, this is a lot of work.
Thank you.
I bet the winner will really treasure the position.
See what you did there, Krishna?
For nominees, someone's got to get 4 votes. So if no one gets 4, then you have to revote with the top 2.
Okay.
Just remember, if there's a
Dan,
financial scandal, it's
You
going
do
to
know the
be your
bus
name
started
in the
at
newspaper.
6:30, right? Is Tanya watching?
Krishna, you made it
Oh,
look
yeah,
like this was
the
the most
treasure
exciting
hunt.
auction since 2016, and then it got real interesting all of a sudden.
Yeah.
We might have to have a runoff, because we got 4 nominees now.
Man, I can't wait for MSNBC to cover this election.
I'm just saying, if only Don and Tucker didn't just lose their jobs.
According to Fox News, this election has been fixed.
So Krishna, I have to tell you, you've inspired.
That's why I wasn't on the ballot.
So the
That's right.
Monona Grove Education Foundation, apparently somebody watched the board meeting and then you're here with us now. And so they were having a great discussion about whether or not to put a student on their board. So you just made a difference.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I'm really glad I stole this costume.
Which school district was it that was watching?
No, well, it's the foundation.
Oh, the
So it's the
foundation.
foundation board doesn't have a student and they make a lot of decisions
by
about where
majority?
the funding
No,
goes.
you just need to.
So you have a student
There
opinion.
needs to be at least 4, so if you let Lorraine know what the vote totals are, then she can. I'm sorry, the answer is yes, it has to be, but I just spoke.
It's the most exciting election.
Yeah, so a runoff between those 2.
Okay.
All right, so the 2 nominees are Peter and Philip.
Who are the, wait, who?
Peter and Philip.
Oh, here we go.
There you go.
And I've got an advantage because my name is on the ballot.
That's
I smell a lawsuit.
I told Phil I want him just to not concede if he loses.
That's right.
That's it.
Just silence. I'm just gonna start operating as treasurer regardless.
Actually, we could just use a blank sheet, right?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Let Tish just work out hard.
Yeah, we'll let you see who it is who has to read the names of all the lawyers.
Yeah. Seriously.
At least we don't have to ballot on that.
This is vote number 2.
Oh.
These have to be available to the public, so that's why you put the number. That's what, these are public records. Right?
See, these aren't,
No,
This
these
is
are
a
not
secret
public.
ballot.
These are secret
for
ballot.
the appointment, they have to be public. You can only
Oh.
do secret ballots
Okay, and these do not have to be public, these do not have to be public, okay, never mind. You're right.
So it was
The
the unique
exception.
thing with the appointment, you had paper, but you had to preserve them.
Right,
because there's
with
no
names.
secret ballot.
You
Yeah.
could make a motion to make them.
Well, if the board voted to
That's
do
what I
that,
meant.
that's
yeah,
correct,
if
yeah.
the board voted to make them.
Yeah.
We could. That's happened before. Some shenanigans in some districts.
Oh, I bet.
And we can also discuss this. Well, I mean, the secret ballots doesn't keep you from having a discussion. In fact, technically, you have to ask if there's any discussion before you vote.
Okay, we have, Little Havens.
Look at that.
The course of history.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Philip. All right, next is
You know you
election.
have to come down here and sign stuff.
I do. I know how to
Next
work on my
is
sleeve.
election of clerk, so Lorraine Gage, Eric, and Philip are up for reelection in 2024, so then we are not a part of this. Is that correct?
Well, they can be.
It's
Okay.
recommended you may not want to, could be perceived as a conflict of interest, since the clerk needs to be involved with the counting of the election.
And you can hold 2 seats or 2.
You cannot.
I guess what I meant is since I'm already treasurer, I can
Right.
also be clerk.
Correct.
So we're out anyways.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
So we're out.
Yeah, you can't be clerk. I mean, preferably not be clerk, yeah.
Would you clarify that?
Yeah,
Dan,
so,
about-
so it's not statutorily prohibited, but there is advice from WSB and legal counsel that you may not want to have your clerk be a person who's up for reelection in the spring, because the clerk has a role in, with the
Oh, that's
canvassing
right.
of the
Yeah.
results.
Yeah, makes sense.
And so,
Which folks are
And
up for
Phil and Lorraine
reelection?
and myself are up for the next reelection.
Correct.
yes.
The 3 of you are?
Yes.
And you already have a position, so
Well, I
you can't be
wonder
clerk.
what that
So it's really just
It's
Susan,
Susan.
Peter, and Michelle.
What do you mean? What does that
It's
mean?
3 years.
We have to run again.
It's like circles
Our
around
term
here,
is up.
like, I'm
No,
not
I
sure
know,
what
but
it
he
is.
would say what it
Did I make
means
that
for
up?
who.
No, I mean,
Who's
I do a
available
lot
to
of
be
stuff
Yeah.
for election.
Is what it-
Oh, it's not.
Got it. Okay.
That's good.
Okay, so the only people who are eligible are Manning,
I'm clerk.
Peter, and Rochelle, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm currently clerk
And how is,
because,
what kind of job have you been doing, I wonder?
well, my signature is illegible.
Very interesting. You guys are being intriguing. But Lorraine knows that. You have to sit right. You would. You'd be good at your signature. You would.
Okay, we have three nominees. Susan, Rochelle, and Peter.
I will withdraw my name from consideration, please.
Do you want?
If
My
I would
hand's
draw my
tired.
name, you're gonna be.
I know, that's why I
Why
was
don't you
thinking
do
if
it?
I.
Just try it.
I'll try.
Tish will help. It's not a bad job. You just have to come sign papers, right? Oh, and you have to take minutes in closed session.
That's right. when there's
Oh,
nobody
I don't
else
want
there.
that.
Oh, aha, quick,
It's-
that's a
it's
reason to
not
vote
that
for.
tough. Dan takes.
I'll take the
Dan
minutes.
takes it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
He does. He does. What else do we have to do?
So, wait, what are you deciding? Are we gonna vote again, or?
Well, we're,
still-
I'm trying to talk her into it, and then I would withdraw, but she's thinking it over. She'd like to ease in, so I don't.
I don't wanna overcommit and then.
Well, I want her
with
on
it all being
policies.
new stuff.
Just quick, what's your name?
Okay,
It's you.
No, you gotta say it first. You gotta say it. You gotta get in quick though.
I'm gonna withdraw my name. Oh, sorry.
Power move right there.
You owe me one.
First meeting power move, Michelle.
The power moment, is this all?
I move approval of Susan Manning as the district clerk for the upcoming year.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion is carried.
She said she'll do it next year.
All right, next can I have a motion?
I move approval of a resolution naming the following institutions for depositories for schools funds for the Monona Grove School District, Monona State Bank, Summit Credit Union, PMA Financial Inc., and the statutorily authorized investment options to which they recommend U.S. Bank and Wisconsin Investment Series Cooperative.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it, motion is carried. All right, can I have a motion for board meetings?
I move approval of the 2023-2024 board meeting schedule as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I have a question.
Yep.
As presented, so where is it?
It was,
Are
it
you
was
not logged in?
in
I am
the,
logged in.
it was
I
in the
don't
board
see
An
it.
docs.
attachment to the agenda item.
I had to log out and log back in, Eric.
I just see that the statute, and then attached, you'll find a draft of the schedule. I don't see it.
You don't see the administrative content thing either. I think you need to, it
Yeah,
doesn't have you as
um,
logged in.
Check. Person.
This guy?
Yeah.
Oh, because I'm not signed in.
Yeah. I had to do the same.
Well, they're logging in. So what we've added on there for your consideration is a status quo calendar where you would meet the second and fourth Wednesday of the month with a couple exceptions. Traditionally, have held only one meeting in July and December. And then on this proposed calendar, there's also a conflict in March. Our spring break would fall on the fourth Wednesday, so recommending only one meeting that month as well.
Okay. Were we gonna have a discussion about Wednesdays? Did that come up? Am I remembering that right? About whether Wednesdays are still a good day?
So, my question is, based on that, you said a discussion about Wednesday. My question is, previously, we met once a month. I still haven't got it, so. And I don't see it, but I'm guessing this is meeting twice a month.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if anybody else has interest in moving back to meeting once a month. I personally do not find a problem with meeting once a month. I did not think that the board meetings went extensively longer, a little longer, but not a lot longer. So I'm curious what the new board members think of meeting twice a month as opposed to once a month.
Susan Manning?
We tried that for at least 2 years, off and on, at different times. I think Peter will remember that too. We were meeting until midnight.
No, Susan, we weren't. That's just not true. I can go back and look at
Eric,
the times.
maybe,
We were meeting- we
maybe
had a
you
couple
were
late
not on the
meetings.
board at the time, which is very possible.
I was on the board when we met for once a month.
We did start when we met, we're meeting once a month.
And when we had a previous superintendent, it was, you can ask the kids who
No, but
didn't.
I know that. I realize
Again,
that.
it's not about truth or not. I'm just telling you
Well, you just,
what had happened.
when I
previously.
was on the board.
So
and
the
we met
meetings
once a
tend
month,
to be, okay.
We did not meet till midnight.
Okay,
so-
board members, we shouldn't argue.
I think it's my turn. I'm concerned that the meetings tend to be longer and that we tend to be more productive before 9 o'clock. So I would suggest we continue to try 2 a month. And when we don't need them, based on the agenda, we can always leave one off.
Thank you. Elizabeth?
So my primary reason for wanting to go to 2 meetings a month was because during COVID, when we were shut down, we were having a lot of like special meetings and special meetings that became really unpredictable. I feel like our meetings we've been able to run them really efficiently, really effectively. They haven't been overburdened. And so I'm open either way. I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other about 1 or 2. but I would be comfortable going with one if that's what other board members wanted to do. My reasoning for it is like not valid anymore, because I'm not concerned about us having a lot of like ad hoc kind of meetings like we did during like the throes of COVID.
So,
Yeah, so my feedback would be similar to yours. I'm open to either approach. I don't feel terribly strongly, but I will say, at least for me personally, fewer meetings would be better than more meetings, in the sense that if I have 2 obligations a month, that's 2 days that I'm axing my schedule all night. It doesn't matter if we're here till like a quick meeting or till 10 o'clock for me. I've made childcare arrangements regardless. So in other words, I'd rather take advantage of I'm going to bother to be here. Let's stay an extra hour and a half and get through what we would have done 2 weeks later. So I think if I had to pick, I'd lean slightly towards one meeting. And I was also going to ask, do we have to start at 7, or can we start at 6:30, or can we edge a little bit earlier just to hedge towards not being here later in case we need more time? Or
Yeah.
We often have, we start at 7 so that we can have a closed session for the meeting at 6. And if we're going to meet less often, we'll have a higher percentage of the time with closed sessions.
And historically, it's been hard for some board members to start meetings prior to that, right? Like transitioning from work and
Understood,
those kind
yeah.
of things.
Peter?
Since we're done, I do have, personally, I would prefer one meeting a month in the summer. And the rest of the year, it doesn't really make too much difference to me, although I think generally, particularly for board members with family obligations, I think they should be the ones we should listen to towards when it comes to setting the schedule. So my personal preferences, I think, are less important, although I think one meeting a month, for me personally, I prefer one meeting a month in the summer. And to be honest, I'm happy to leave it to your discretion in terms of the workload, and where we have a scheduled board meeting on the 2nd and the 4th, and if you feel that we can, get everything done on one meeting and don't need the second meeting, then we don't schedule the second meeting. And I would actually, what I would do is I would request that you try, based on the feedback you're getting here, to do that, and then when you feel you and Dan feel we need to have a second meeting a month, we'll just pull in that second meeting, and then we have them on the schedule, and we don't necessarily hold them based on what you feel is an appropriate thing to do.
I actually like that option of having 2 meetings listed, but if we don't need a second one, then we just have the one. Is that what you're suggesting?
That's what I'm suggesting.
my feedback on that, though, is blocking the calendar is the
Yeah.
issue for me. So it doesn't really,
I agree.
may as well have it at that point,
Yeah.
right? My family schedules out like 3
Yeah.
months in advance, which is why I had a couple conflicts when I first got on the board. And
Oh.
so,
Okay.
do you know what I'm saying? So if we're locking in a Wednesday anyway, in case, it's like, may as well.
I still
Okay.
am in favor of 2 meetings, just because jamming a lot of material in one meeting may be too much and overwhelming. I think spreading it out in 2 meetings would be easier. Krishna?
Yeah, I'd say that, of course, I haven't been on the board for as long as the rest of the people here. However, I would say that it often does depend on how much material we have, especially in summer, like Peter said, we're probably, I assume, not going to have as much material to cover, so perhaps then you could consider 1 meeting per month. However, considering just the constantly inspiring and moving nature of school and the district, I would say that we should be open to 2 meetings if necessary, and definitely have the ability to constantly suggest that and bring it up if needed, if an emergency. Just in short, I would say that 1 meeting a month would definitely be more beneficial from an opportunity cost perspective, at least in my personal life, but regards to the best interest of this board, I definitely say that 2 meetings a month might allow us to be more efficient, should the demand be sufficient in order for us to do so.
Thank you, Krishna. Peter, and then Elizabeth.
And I just want to also comment that I do know that we have the staff, Dan and administrative staff, and people come to these meetings, and because it's nice to have them on hand. And that also is a consideration, and I think 1 meeting a month is better suited to many. I know these people work hard, and pulling them in here to sit in the back of the room late night in case we need them is, always as considerate of their time as we could be.
Thank you, Peter. Elizabeth?
I like your idea, Peter. In theory, I just feel like it wouldn't actually get implemented. You know how like when your house, like your house is too small, and you're like, I need a bigger house, but then you end up just buying more stuff to fill the house. I feel like the agendas could be that way too, right? Where it's like this is coming up, and so then you start loading in meeting items, and so I wonder about that actually working. Like even though in theory I totally get it.
Trust Lorraine.
But we've done it.
Yeah.
We've had cut meetings.
That's true. Yeah. Okay.
Susan and then Dan.
I think Dan has done a really nice job of, on top of the 2 meetings a month, we sometimes also need a workshop. And sometimes August is our toughest month. And I just think by leaving the schedule at 2, it leaves our superintendent the option of being able to see what he needs to bring to the board and how that timing might go. It kind of leaves more of the agenda at the discretion of the president and the superintendent. And I'm very comfortable with that.
Thank you, Susan. Dan?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, whichever way you go, we will set our agendas, tentative agendas for the whole year. And so if it's 1 meeting a month, we'll schedule it that way to make sure that we know that things have to be approved at a certain time or there. If it's 2 meetings a month, then we'll spread them out a little bit. I appreciate, Philip's comments about, we actually did cancel at least one this past year.
That's true.
And for some that might be helpful, others, I understand may not be. The other comment, I guess, if you go to 1 meeting a month, then that does, we generally will try to stick to the board business and perhaps not as many reports, to try to, save time that way. Whereas when you have 2 meetings a month, it's easier to fit in reports. But the other option, as Susan mentioned, is you go 1 meeting a month. From time to time, a workshop is maybe a better way of discussing special items as well. The problem is scheduling those enough in advance so that you can do that. So I guess what I'm saying, we can make either one work. It's really your preference. I think there's really good points that are made tonight, as well as the time. Again, traditionally, as I stated, we've always started at 7. Depending on your schedules, you set the time, whatever you'd like. The closed session, I think historically we've tried to do it before, because if you do have a long meeting, who wants to go into closed session late at night? If there's just a real short special item, we have done it from time to time, depending on that. But it is really up to this board. Those are all options that you can consider.
Eric?
Well, part of my proposal is I obviously have a new child on the way, so my time is going to be very, very limited moving forward. But the other thing is, I did feel like when we were meeting once a month that it was productive. COVID messed a lot of that up. So, but when we were doing it before that, I thought they were a little longer. But like Philip said, I wipe out the night anyways for me. It's gone. We have childcare set up, it's got to be set up anyway. So it's a wasted day for me. Not wasted, but for care of my family, that day is X'd off my calendar. I think we can be very productive with 1 meeting a month. I think we're all perfectly capable of doing that. In fact, I think in general, people tend to meet too often, and they don't need to do that. I'm also curious, Rochelle, to hear what you have to say too, because you're going to be meeting with us too. So.
I have to raise my hand to talk. Okay.
No, go ahead. You have the floor.
I hear both points, and I do appreciate in this last year noticing that there were meetings, there was at least 1 meeting scheduled, and then there wasn't enough to cover, and so it was just moved, and you guys decided that. And I think having flexibility is helpful, just because you don't always know what you're going to be dealing with. So if we say all year it's just 1 meeting a month, would we have options to add a second? Like, how would that shake out? So in case there were some bigger issues that were going to require more meetings. But I guess I'm kind of, if we're meeting twice a month, I would just make that work. If we meet once a month, I make that work. So I'm kind of committed to be flexible.
Elizabeth?
Yeah, so to answer the question about adding, so we can add, and we did quite a bit during COVID, right? We had things to discuss and we'd add special meetings.
Well, we could have a special meeting. We
Yeah,
have to, but-
I don't prefer that because, to your point around scheduling, it's actually it's a lot easier to schedule when you have a known thing than it is when it's like, oh, now we have to try to figure this out and how do we rearrange things? And so my preference would be to keep 2 versus have 1 and then have a bunch of special meetings. That was really tough. I don't want to give up I don't want to give up reports though. I feel like the reports that we've been getting from administrators this year have been really, really good and really useful in terms of our board business. And I would be concerned if we didn't get that level of detail moving forward because we only have 1 meeting. And I don't know if that's a good enough reason to not get that level of detail, but I do think that's an important consideration.
Rochelle?
Yeah, I want to make one other point as an educator. If those meetings go long and we're tired and we've worked all day, we're not going to make as good decisions as we would if we were fresher. So that's another consideration for 2.
After 9 o'clock, we're not good.
We did
That's
have some
what
long ones
Andrew-
during COVID. I don't think we ever made it to midnight.
I make better decisions after 9 o'clock personally, so I think that's relative to each person. But,
Is there a
procedure.
consensus? Is there any?
Well, I'm asking procedurally.
Do we have a
We could take
motion
it.
on the,
We do have a
Actually,
motion.
We do.
do we have a second?
We do, but Dan has a suggestion.
Yes.
So-
Because Eric can amend that and then we
That's what I
can
was
vote on the
thinking to do.
amendment.
Dan's got a suggestion though.
Well, an idea to consider, by statute, you must have 1 regular meeting a month. On this proposed calendar, there are 9 months with 2 meetings, 3 with only the 1. You could be creative and go every other month, 2 meetings, and have, 18 meetings. I don't know if that's confusing or not, but, I mean, you can set the schedule.
Susan?
I appreciate that suggestion, but I think that, as Rochelle and I think Elizabeth kind of alluded to, I'd rather have the 2 scheduled and have you cancel one. And then try, do you know what it's like for Dan to try and schedule even a policy meeting with 3 people?
Do you know what it's like for the
It's-
Harts family to have some on a calendar and then take it
Eric,
off?
it's,
I'm being serious.
did you raise your hand? No, I'm done.
No.
She's right, she has
We
the
can
floor.
call the question, just do it here.
This,
All right, well, I guess we can go to vote. I mean, any other discussion?
Well, I will make an amendment. I'll make a motion to amend that.
okay.
Doesn't have to be approved, but I'm
That's
going to
the
make
way
a
to do
motion. I'll make an motion to amend
The schedule.
the approval of the 2023-24 board meeting schedule
Which regular board meetings on the
With-
2nd of the month?
with regular board meetings on the 2nd of the month,
Wednesday of the month.
second Wednesday of the month.
Okay, all those in favor?
No, I
didn't have a
second.
Oh, give me a second, sorry.
I'll second it just because I want to see this.
It's like all kinds of intrigue today.
So you made another amendment, so there's discussion. Any further discussion? All right, so all those in favor?
You might want to do it.
Of the amendment.
Yeah, it's the amendment, so we should roll call it. Because I
Yeah,
don't think we
roll
have.
call.
Okay, Rochelle,
I say no.
Susan Manning,
No,
Elizabeth,
It was a hard one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Philip,
Yes.
go to you. Eric,
Yes.
Peter? How's it count?
Well, it is something we can always change, isn't it?
Hmm?
Yes.
Okay, Maureen, no. So what is that?
Is that
4 to
even?
Motion
4 to
passes.
3.
Four to three.
Yeah, 4 to 3.
Yeah.
All right, motion is carried.
Then we need a vote on the main motion. Because that was the amendment.
But then,
That's the new amendment, so now it's amended to that. Now we have to all vote on that.
So that was just to.
That was
agree to
approve the
amend it.
amendment.
Yeah.
Oh, so now I gotta vote on it for real, so I
Oh,
can.
yes.
Correct. Yeah, you could do that, that would look real good.
I don't like to disappoint Lorene, Eric.
You know, we can all agree to disagree, it's okay. okay.
Okay, so we already have the motion out
It's
there?
okay.
Yes.
And we have the discussion
Yeah.
already, all right, so roll call vote.
Should we, let's read it again, should we read
Sure,
it
go
again?
ahead.
The
Yeah, just for
amended-
clarity.
The amended motion is approval of the 2023-2024 board meeting scheduled the second Wednesday of the month, correct?
With the regular board
With the
meeting.
regular board meeting, the second Wednesday of each month.
Right.
All right, we're going to vote, so Rochelle,
Somebody say no.
Susan?
No.
Aye.
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 No. Ayes have it, motion is carried. All right, moving on to designation of legal counsel.
I move approval of a resolution naming the following firms as legal counsel for the Monona Grove School District: Boardman and Clark Law Offices, WASB Counsel, Quarles and Brady, DeWitt, Ross, Stevens, SC Godfrey and Kahn, SC Renning, Lewis and Lacey, SC Von Briesen. Wait a minute, I've got the commas wrong. Renning, Lewis and Lacey, SC Von Briesen and Roper, SC, and Bulow, Vetter, Bukema, Olson, and Vliet, LLC.
Can I ask a question? Why do we have so many law firms?
Yeah, so our primary legal counsel is Boardman and Clark. And then each of those others are more for specialty items. And
So they specialize in particular
yeah,
areas?
for instance, the finance piece, we have one group. I will say we will not use all these law firms in the next year. Those
Okay.
are ones that we have used historically. We typically will use 2 or 3.
Okay, so we have a motion now, we need a second.
Oh, second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion is carried. Next is the designation of official newspaper.
I move approval of a resolution naming the Herald Independent and McFarland Thistle as the official newspaper of the school district.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion is carried. Next is the designation of membership in professional organizations.
I move approval of the resolution naming the following organizations as the professional organizations within which the Monona Grove School District are members: Wisconsin Association of School Boards and CESA number 2. CESA stands for Cooperative Education
Service Agency.
Services Agency, thank you. The S is services.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion?
Yeah. As a point of personal inquiry, I did hear that CISA did drop their driving courses. Is that still true?
But we are still contracted with them. They had some issues, I think, with staffing that we had to cancel some of that, but we still have our contract with them for the upcoming year.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to vote, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion is carried. All right, next is the designation of CISA 2 representative. Have a motion, please.
Just as a question, does it have to be a regular board member, or could Krishna be our CESA 2
I'm
representative?
pretty sure it has to be elected by.
Okay. Fine,
Yeah.
just want to know.
Yeah, so you see, it is a one-time commitment. There is every school district in our seats, so there are 72 of them. The one meeting a year in June. Unfortunately, they haven't announced the exact date of that yet. So that's why we typically have appointed an alternate in case that date comes out and the designee is not around.
I mean, I'd be happy to do it, but the fact that we don't know the schedule makes it, I mean, you can appoint me and an alternate, but I'm happy to do it, but the schedule could be problematic.
Is it normally during the week or on a weekend or when?
Yeah, I think it's typically a Tuesday night.
Mhm.
And it's in Whitewater.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
It's a little bit of a drive.
I'll nominate myself too for that.
Oh,
Yeah, my parents live in Whitewater, so I'd be happy to.
well,
Or- How about,
I'm done, I'm out.
I'll move approval of Rochelle serving as CC2 representative and Phil serving as the alternate for 2023, 2024.
Second?
Yeah.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion is carried. Next is the designation of Monona Grove Education Foundation representative.
That's, again, that's, if somebody is excited and interested to do that, they meet once a month, and you're supposed to be at that meeting. And it takes an hour to an hour and a half, and then you report out to the board. And it basically, you're not a voting member, and you don't really participate. You just listen and report back to the board. I've done it for 2 years. I've also, the other thing that I think I've done that's been helpful to them is there's a group of 3 of us that basically sign the donation letters, and we brought in $12,000 a year doing that. So again, I'd be willing to
So
continue.
do you want to do it again?
I'd be willing to continue to serve again, but if somebody is really interested, I think it's nice to have somebody else have that experience.
So they meet on the second Tuesday of the month at 4 o'clock, and they meet virtually.
You know everyone so well, Susan.
I know, I agree.
Like, you know that group of people so well. So you're perfect for that.
But, sometimes, and again, if Phil or Rochelle are interested in sitting in on that, again, you have to be there for an hour. It's virtual, so you can take it from anywhere.
Oh, it's virtual.
Mhm.
But it does give you a good feel. Dan always gives a report, which is helpful, and he's there, so that's also very helpful.
It's a,
But you have no voice in their decisions.
it's a good way to meet some interesting people
Sure.
Yeah.
who are helpful to our school district. And I do
And again-
encourage new people to go to do that job.
But other board members have done it, and they don't necessarily participate in
I did
fundraising,
once.
and it's not required by any means.
I've done it, he's done it,
But
Suze
it's
doesn't.
a major factor.
Who hasn't done it?
I have it, but I
haven't.
can't.
No, what you have to do is let Jason know that you're interested.
Mhm.
All right, any other takers for that?
I told him to come.
Do we have
4
any
o'clock
takers?
time doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, well, can we have a motion?
I motion Susan. Stay in that awesome
Get you back.
position.
So Rochelle, if you look on board docs, there's a recommended
Yeah,
action. You
I
can
can
read
read
that.
that.
Oh, okay.
And then you can make the motion.
Okay, I'm still learning to
Yep, I
navigate
know, so it's
this.
number 11.
Susan have it?
No, she's on CISA too.
Number 11.
Did you find it?
Here, I'll look at mine.
Yeah. So I just read move to approve of Susan for serving as the Monona Grove Education Foundation representative of 23-24.
Yes.
Second?
Thank you for putting the years in.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, aye. Have it, motion is carried. All right, next is the designation of Wisconsin Association of School Board, WASB delegate.
That'll be interesting, won't it?
So those dates are set. It's always the third week in January in Milwaukee, Wednesday through Friday, so the delegate assembly meets on Wednesday and Thursday.
The third week of January?
Yeah.
So just once a year, Wednesday, Thursday.
Well,
Yeah,
it's during the WASB convention.
Yeah, during the annual
Our
conference.
annual convention. What it consists of is that the WASB group, they get together, they have a bunch of resolutions, and they vote on them, whether or not to make them, and then the resolutions go into the resolution book, and it's, forwarded to the legislature for, this is a position of WASB on particular issues. And it's typically all morning Thursday, is that right?
Afternoon.
We have
It's during that, I think it's afternoon.
Wednesday afternoon is like an
It's-
orientation.
During
Yeah.
the meetings, the special meetings that they have on
Yeah.
Tuesdays.
And then the votes on.
And then there's another full afternoon when they actually go into session.
Mhm.
Or is that all day?
So the first day is Wednesday, and then the actual voting is on Thursday.
Okay.
And is this a voting position, or is this just a
Mhm.
attendance
Yes.
It's,
position?
you're like our represent,
Okay.
you're like our board representative, and we often, like, we'll go to the conference for the year anyway, so.
Gotcha.
And usually that person brings the resolutions, summarizes them and brings them to the board just to ask the board's opinion
Well,
about that kind of thing.
we get the resolutions beforehand,
Mhm.
and we can have as a discussion the board and make recommendations if there's anything in particular that anybody wants the representative points to make or to vote in that meeting, we can do that. We can give guidance. Usually, most of them are not controversial, but sometimes there's one or two where we want to have a discussion.
Sure.
It does mean you have to be in Milwaukee for those 2 meetings.
That's right.
Yeah, I would be interested in doing that.
All right.
But I won't fight anybody over it.
I move approval of Phil serving as the Wisconsin Association
Yeah.
of School Board Delegate.
Can I ask Philip
We need
instead
a
of Phil before we?
What's that?
Philip instead of Phil.
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
And we don't have an alternate. Sorry, I can't complete a
Yeah.
motion yet. Who wants to be an alternate?
I'll alternate for Philip.
I move approval of Philip Haven serving as the Wisconsin Association of School Board Delegate and Elizabeth Cook serving as the alternate for 2023-2024.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, ayes have it, motion is carried. All right, next is the designation of board legislation liaison.
I would be interested in this if anybody else isn't.
I move approval of Eric Hart serving as the legislative liaisons for the 2023-2024.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion is carried. Next is the designation of membership in Wisconsin Public Education Network.
I'd read it, but my screen isn't updating. Oh, there it goes. I move approval of membership in Wisconsin Public Education Network for 2023-2024.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion is carried.
Is you guys internet stuff working?
Yeah, mine's not.
Do the staffing. Eric's on another call.
Oh, sure.
Is your internet stuff working, or is it just mine?
That's spotty.
Yeah, mine
Mhm.
also slow as well.
All right, moving on to possible action items.
Okay. So, for the resolution, we do have Eric Cass from TMA with us. He had to take a call right now, so if we can move on to the staffing plan and then flip the order. Okay. Wait for my computer to
Can I have a
refresh.
motion?
Oh, we actually need a motion to,
Yeah, you just start, yeah. Motion and we'll discuss. Yeah.
what am I
To what?
supposed? To move
Oh.
the order of the business?
Oh, you can just ask if there's any objections to that.
Okay. Any objections?
There you go.
All right.
And if there are none, then it's been passed by unanimous consent.
I don't have it up. You have it?
Certified, it's coming up slowly. There it
Yeah.
is.
That's what we talked about before, did?
Yeah.
Some
No
people
changes.
binge watching Bluey over there and stuck in the
Yeah,
internet.
so I can give this a quick preview.
Yeah, give us a quick.
No,
So,
that's where we're going right now.
um,
We just approved the reordering.
So the first document is the FTE. That's the document we're actually asking for approval on this evening. So I outlined in the executive summary the changes since the last time the board saw this report, and which was in March. As you know, we're continually monitoring our student enrollment, particularly students with individual needs and student services staffing, how to support those students. And so you'll see that we are recommending some additional positions beyond what we recommended in March. And two of them in particular that we have a little bit of a narrative that the board hasn't discussed before. The first is we're recommending an additional FTE for our full release mentor program. In that second document, there's a little bit of an explanation as to why. If there's any questions, then that Lisa Hype helps coordinate that, and she could answer that for you this evening. But essentially, it comes down to numbers, right? That we have right now we've had 2 full release mentors, and with the number of new teachers that we've had, as we continue to grow, we really need 3 to support that program. So.
What, sorry, Dan, what document did you say?
Oh,
to look up for that?
okay, so the second attached one that just says certified staffing plan, where it's sorted
Got it, okay.
by building.
Yep,
And then at the very end of that, district-wide, you'll see a little bit of a narrative there
Got
about
it.
the full
Thank you.
release mentor. Yeah. So maybe if it's okay, perhaps pause there and see if there are any specific questions about that program or that position.
Susan Manning?
I move approval of the 2023-24 certified staffing plan is presented. And Dan, thank you for the documents, added clarity, thank you.
second?
Any further discussion?
I have a question, Maureen.
Yes.
Dan, the Dean of Students position being changed over to Associate Principal, is there a salary difference between those 2 positions?
There is.
Okay.
And I didn't attach the salaries of our current position, but I would say based upon what our current staff, the difference would be about $20,000.
And we have the $20,000, okay. And the difference between the Dean of Students and the Associate Principal, what additional things would the Associate Principal be able to take on, and will that take anything away from this job that Dean of Students is doing?
Great question. So the Dean of Students position, of course, is to help support our students primarily, and so those entire roles that are covered by the Dean of Students would be taken on by the Associate Principal, and then the additional duties would be, as an Associate Principal, they also would be involved with also supporting the supervision of staff, and that supervision means attending team meetings, the actual formal EE process, the evaluation, and all the other roles that go along with the principal and associate principal. So that's the rationale for the larger salary. It's also a year-round position, so they're working in the summer planning as well.
And who's the current Dean of Students?
Current Dean of Students is Nate Verhage.
Okay. And that is that position then going to be eliminated?
Right, so if this is approved, we would eliminate that position and then post for the associate principal position.
Then what happens to the person in that position?
Would be welcome to apply if interested.
Okay. Or other positions in the district?
Correct.
So maybe like surplus or reallocated?
Yeah, I mean, we'd have to apply, but
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Elizabeth?
Oh, go ahead, Peter.
I'm going to ask, approximately how many new teachers do we hire a year?
Yeah, great question. So, make sure I get it right, but typically the last few years, it's been slightly over 50 per year.
And that would be more than historically we've seen,
Yeah.
right? But a good margin, I think.
Yeah, and really 2 reasons, right? One is we are growing, but then secondly, the amount of turnover, of course, has changed, dramatically the last several years.
Is 2 mentors enough?
It's gonna be 3 now.
I'm sorry, it's going to be 3 now.
The
We have
recommendation
two.
is increased
That
to
increases,
3.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
that increases to 3.
Yeah, and just the raw numbers, typically, we look at trying to have a maximum of a ratio of about 14 teachers per mentor they're working with,
Mhm.
and this year, I think we've been like 18, 19. And not only that, just the sheer number,
I'm sorry, but those mentors are working with teachers in the first 3 years.
primarily the first 2 years, and
Primarily.
then sometimes they extend to the third.
Okay. But they're working with new teachers, so
Yeah.
50, I mean, with 50 a year, that's 100 new teachers a
Well,
year.
not all. So a teacher that comes new to the district but is an experienced teacher
Uh-huh.
does not work with the full release mentor. They're
Okay.
working primarily with people who are first 2 years in the teaching profession.
Okay.
And then we do make exceptions to that. If someone might have only 3 or 4 years and they're new to the district, they will work with them as well. And that's one of the things, particularly by adding the third position, that we feel we could expand, that support to some additional teachers.
Elizabeth?
I have a question just about the mentoring programs. I don't know if it's better for you, Dan, or for you, Lisa. I will ask the question,
Yeah.
and whoever has the answer. So can you talk a little bit about how the caseload gets broken up and how it'll change with the third person?
Yeah.
Sure. So we look to try to minimize travel in multiple buildings. they have to go into, we have 2 mentors
Yes.
in, 7 buildings.
Yeah.
So we do look sometimes at like elementary or middle or high, maybe we align it that way. So for example, like this year, one of our mentors is in the high school and then some of the elementary. The other one is at the middle school and some of the
Sure.
elementary. So we've divvied it up that way. Sometimes we're lucky to have a match in terms of expertise in the content area, but more often it's about acceleration of instructional effectiveness using the Danielson framework, and it's not about like, do I know your content
Sure.
specifically?
Okay.
So, because there's still coordinators and
Yeah.
team members and department members and things like that that also support new staff. But that's how we've broken it up in the past. We get our lists, sit down with the mentors, we go through it, make
Yeah.
sure everybody's covered, everybody has a mentor. New hire orientation, they meet their mentors. As Dan was referencing, the teacher advisors or TAs come in during new hire orientation and they meet with the staff who have multiple years of experience. So if we hire someone with 10 years of experience, they're getting a TA, not a full release mentor, et cetera.
Do they then, are they like with that mentor then for their kind of 2.5, 3 year? So it's not like a cohort model?
Correct.
That's good. And then I had 2 more questions, but I forgot the other one, so I'm going to just jump to the last one, and then hopefully the one before the last one will come to me. And that is, have we ever thought about, because of the way turnover has been and staff moving around, like would there ever be a threshold by which we would want to have a full release mentor embedded in a building or embedded in a building more consistently, as opposed to thinking about it from a caseload perspective? I'm just thinking about like, I don't know, it shifts your dynamic, right? If you've got a large amount of new teachers.
Yeah.
I was just kind of curious if you've ever thought about that at all.
We have instructional coaches embedded in every building, and so instructional coaches are there to also support
Yeah.
all of our staff, regardless of,
Sure.
of status. So I think it's a nice teaming. Our mentors meet monthly with the instructional
great.
coaches. The instructional coaches right now are the group of people that our mentors hand off that 3rd year of mentoring in, when DPI in 2018 added the 3rd year of mentoring. So they have a really close relationship in terms of support. So those folks already are embedded, 1 per building. So no, I don't think right now we're at a threshold where we could add 1 per
Sure.
building.
Yeah.
And I feel like actually, our mentors have done fantastic work with the people who have no experience or 1 year of experience. Adding a 3rd, you can see in the rationale,
Yeah.
but we'll be able to be even more effective in many ways that
Yeah.
we'd like to, as we reflect on our program and how we can continue to improve the support.
Yeah, great. And your answer reminded me of the question that I forgot, which
Yeah.
was, I read in the notes about having that 3rd year be more of like a soft handoff between the mentor and the instructional coach.
Correct.
I was curious about kind of what your thinking is there around kind of what that would look like or how that's different than what we do now.
Yeah, so again, when DPI came in with that 3rd year, they don't describe what it has to look like. They just say, we want another year of mentoring support.
Thanks,
And
DPI.
because our mentors and their caseload was already pretty maxed.
Yeah.
What we came up with as our best solution at the time was to have the instructional coaches do a coaching cycle in the 1st semester when they made that handoff.
Okay.
So obviously the new staff are already familiar with the instructional coaches. They've been in the building now for a couple years, 2 years. They're going into their 3rd. So then it just seemed like a really smooth way to transition. But I do think we could still do, even involve the mentor a little bit that 1st semester.
Yeah.
And then make sure in that 2nd semester of that 3rd year that the instructional coaches are ready to take on
Yeah.
the fuller responsibility.
Yeah, great, thanks, Susan. It's a great program. I'm glad we're adding more staff support to it.
Yeah.
Susan, I see your hand. I just want to ask a question. So looking at the job description for the Dean of Students, most of their duties is related to student behavior. By taking this role away and having the AP role, what will happen with monitoring student behavior. And then the other one was serving as an emergency substitute teacher. Will that AP also do that?
Yeah, so all of these things that are in the dean of students job description would move on to the AP. And it's actually a shared, so the student behavior piece would be between both APs as well as the principal. All three of them collectively working. In fact, they currently do, the AP and principal. The dean of students does not do it, one person. It already is a team effort. And then the second question, apologize, I forgot already.
It was serving as a substitute teacher.
When we have our severe staffing shortage, it's all hands on deck. So anyone with a teaching license may be asked to sub at any time.
Including the superintendent.
Yes.
Has it ever happened?
I know, yeah. In times like this, that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Susan?
Lisa, that was really helpful to get that information about the teacher mentoring program. So we've had one, for those of you who don't have all the background on it, Tom Howe was one of our teachers at the high school, and he actually began major components of this program, which is now national. In the early beginning, there was actually a board liaison on the teacher mentoring committee. And then they would, just like Monona Web Education Foundation, they didn't vote or really participate, but they went and they watched and they understood what was going on and would report back to the board just a summary of that. It was a way of keeping us kind of on track. That was back in the Peter Kuzma days. And then there was a hired teacher mentor who actually came out of the teaching position and was paid to be the head mentor that particular year. And then there were teacher mentors in each building, but there were also mentors for all teachers at one point in time. So maybe just as the program transitions, just TLE, if we could just, at some point when it's convenient and we could fit it in to a board meeting, it would be helpful to just get the update on that program, because it's been a fabulous program. And new staff talk about it all the time. They did it in Stoughton, and I had new teachers from Stoughton saying, "Oh, you should do that." And I said, "We've been doing it much longer than you have." But the teachers appreciate it, and it wasn't just new staff, it was actually also the established staff that appreciate that mentoring. Having somebody come sit in the classroom and see how you're doing. So.
Move to vote.
All right. We already had a motion.
Yeah, we're in discussion.
Okay. I got lost.
Yes, it's fair.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion is carried.
Since we have a little break while Mark is getting, I just wanted to welcome the new board members, Rochelle and Philip, and to let you know if you have any questions about procedural stuff, you can ask any of us. Susan, Manny, and Peter have been on the board the longest. You probably will be the best at answering, but Lorene and myself and Elizabeth can help you out too. So
Oh, yeah, don't hesitate to reach out.
don't hesitate to stop and kind of ask, especially with procedural stuff. So it took me a while to figure it all out.
Yeah.
I still don't get it.
Yeah.
I still barely make a motion. Go on your floor.
She's really good at the second.
It's my jam.
Great.
All right, moving on to the next possible action item. Resolution authorizing the issuance and establishing perimeters for the sale of not to exceed $2,700,000 note, anticipation note series 2023 pursuant to section 67.12 1B Wisconsin statute.
In December, the board, we were presented about $2.7 million worth of projects for the high school and GDS. And then we would bring back the financing at a later time, and we were obviously hoping the referendum passed. And so at the last meeting, you did approve the resolution, and now and we're in the middle of the petition period, and now Eric Cass from PMA is here to present the strategy or process for financing this going forward. It's going to be kind of a two-parter, that how we're going to do this. So Eric, you can, Eric is now the Director of Public Finance for PMA, so Michelle has moved on.
Moved up.
Moved on, yes.
Yes.
So now we have the B team.
Soon to be 18.
No,
Depends on how this goes.
From our point of view, Michelle Weiberg, she's my boss, and she got a much-deserved promotion to be our Chief and Sales Marketing Officer. So she's got national responsibilities for PMA. So she's just being, she's a rock star, but she's doing a great job in her new promotion. So to clarify a little bit what Mark said, so this is kind of a multi-step process that the board is going to see pieces of information. The first one was the authorizing resolution, and that starts what's called a 30-day petition period from when it gets posted in the newspaper. And when we think about funding of a project and working with administration when they want to start mobilizing, doing all the engineering, all those things start to incur costs. And so what's in front of you this evening is what's called a parameters resolution. Historically, if you've been on the board and gone through borrowings in the past, you're probably used to a sale happening on the day of a board meeting, and then Quarles and Brady will formulate resolutions, we'll do all the analysis behind the scenes, low bidder gets it, and the board approves the sale on the same day that we take bids. A little bit different in this approach is because we have this petition period. It didn't necessarily line up to get funding for the school district to start the project, and when your board meetings were falling. So the other option, and what we're recommending and what you're considering this evening, is what's called a parameters resolution. That really gives administration the authority on May 24th, when we go to market and the petition period is cleared, to sign off on the low-cost bidder within the parameters that are within the resolution. So happy to answer any questions on that. The other piece that I just wanted to highlight very quickly and what's in your packet is because interest rates are certainly different than where they were a year or two ago, we're approaching the sale a little bit differently than what we have in the past. Historically, we've gone very long-term financing, up to 20 years under Wisconsin state law. What we're considering and what I'll show you very quickly here is more of what we call an interim short-term financing. It's for a period of 5 years, and after 2 years, the school district has the ability to refund or hopefully take advantage of lower interest rates. We believe that over the next 5 years, there probably is going to be a better opportunity to lock in long-term rates, and so the structure is really helping to support that. As you're flipping through the packet, just very quickly, the first page, which is a very choppy graph, the solid line is just an indication of what interest rates were for a AAA credit quality for one maturity as of last Friday. And I think the visual just goes to show you that over the last 20 years, there's a lot of points below the line in comparison to above the line. So we're trying to, again, put in an interim financing that doesn't lock in rates and miss an opportunity, where a lot of economists think that once the Fed slows down interest rate hikes, recession may or may not hit, but we're going to begin to see interest rates decrease over a period of time. The next chart, which is a little bit easier to understand, is just from the start of the year. So interest rates are very volatile, but what I wanted to show here is the top line would be what we would expect if we locked in at a 20-year interest rate. And so we're lowering the exposure and the interest rate because we are recommending a 5-year financing. So that's the difference between the dark blue line and the 5 and the 10-year, which historically speaking are not so tight, but are very close from a financing perspective. The next 2 slides are just giving you a snapshot for your information on what your current Fund 38 non-referendum approved debt, which is what you're considering. It falls within revenue limits, looks like. There's 4 issues, 2 are energy efficiency, 2 are not. And one component, if you look at page 3 of the handouts, there's a call feature on that first debt issuance from 2015 on 5/1/2025. So the other reason to have a 2-year call feature on this new issuance is to align the call dates so that we can be a little bit more efficient in going to market if there is an opportunity to refund. Lower cost of issuance, not everybody needs to get paid twice, so trying to think strategically about that for the school district. And then finally, on the last page, you'll see that the intent is to issue under a 5-year financing. Working with Mark, the structure would be in place to continue to pay off principal. So we would project about $2.2 million would still remain out of the 2.7 after 5 years, and looking to refund that with a lower interest rate at that point in time. going out 15 years. We are showing 4.75, which is probably a little higher than what we would see in the market, but just remember that we're issuing over a 15-year period when we refund versus a 5-year interest rate. So going from a 4.2 to probably more like a 4.25 or 4.5 a couple of years from now, we feel is the right approach for the school district. So that being said, would be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Eric?
The interest rate there, 4.75, is that set? I mean, do you have the ability to shop that around and try to get a lower rate possible?
Absolutely, that's just a projection of what we think interest rates might be 24 months from now. So there's nothing set in stone from the board's action this evening.
Peter?
So the first of all, I've been on the board a long time. Congratulations, you give me a new one. First of all, what's a NAN?
It is a note anticipation note.
Okay, thank you. A note anticipation.
Feels like too many
note.
notes.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Education loves acronyms.
And the first 5-year debt is, it's a maximum of 5 years. We do have to refinance that after 5 years regardless of interest rates. But we can start looking, after 2 years, we can start looking to refinance this.
Correct. So you can refinance, or you could actually pay it off more quickly if you wanted to. I know that that's probably not going to happen because it's within revenue limits, but you do have that option to be flexible after 2 years.
Now, there's a limit to the amount we can refinance in a given year, which is like 10 million, is that correct?
That's a bank qualified limit where.
That's what I'm sorry with?
It's
Bank
10 million.
Bank, yeah.
Yeah, it's bank qualified, so you can refund more than 10 million. But when you're looking at the lowest rate on their tax exempt status, that would have a $10 million cap on a calendar year.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's certainly something we would look at. But I don't want to get too
I
technical.
thought there was a statutory limit to refinance.
No.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
Even, I mean, not that I'm aware of, we've never run into it, but, I mean, we're below the 10 million, which would be 2.7, which would even be bank qualified, so there's nothing that has come up that would concern me in your ability to keep the lowest interest rate within that year 2 to 5.
And when we do refund, I don't like that word, refinance,
Yeah.
the maximum, is 20 years maximum on the total, regardless, you don't refund with a new 20-year rate, right? Or a repayment plan.
Our intention would be that you would go from a 5-year to a 15-year,
Right,
but
so it's 20
technically under
years.
Wisconsin law, you could refund your note anticipation note, which is the NAN, out a full 20 years.
Okay.
That's not the intention of how we're building the plan, but the board, you know, when they refund that, could look at that as an opportunity to lower exposure within the general fund and things like that. They're not tied to it.
So it is an option that we don't do 15 years, or if we refinance in 2 years, we can do 18, but we could do less, or we could do more. We could-
Correct, up to a full 20 years.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Welcome.
Yes, Krista?
Firstly, thank you so much for your presentation. I am a student here, so it's really helpful to hear that perspective. And I know this question is directed more towards the board, but as a student, I was curious as to the financing of all these projects. Now, working for the Sustainability Committee and the solar project last year, I understand how the board typically finances the projects through bonds and grants. However, 2 days ago, my friend came up to me and he was talking about how apparently there was some law that lets schools do whatever tax rate they want. And basically this is going to mean higher taxes. Now, obviously, given my experience, I was very quick to dispute with that and told him how that school boards really don't work that way. So I just wanted to get a response from the board that I can share with the students and my friends at school. How does the school typically finance projects like this? And since this meeting was before I was on this board, how is it related to this project?
Should Mark answer that?
Yeah, Mark, yeah.
Well, there's two options to finance projects. One is to go to referendum. Okay, so if we're going to build a new school, we would ask the citizens to vote for that. And then, you know, we would finance that kind of the way we are now. But that's not under our revenue limit. Do you understand revenue limits?
Yes.
Okay, so if we borrow without going to referendum, then we have to take that money kind of off our bottom line, and then that's part of our operating budget, for lack of a better word, then we finance it that way. So really, one is with a referendum and one is without. And the financing mechanisms are the same, it just affects our budget different. Yeah.
The sort of the bigger picture is the levy, the tax levy at the end of the day is set by a complicated formula provided by the state. But there's also a revenue limit, so we cannot just raise the taxes to any rate we want. There's a limit, and we're at the limit. If we go to referendum, the taxpayers of the district can vote to raise their own taxes.
Right.
Beyond that. That's how that happens. And for example, when we build a new school, that's what we do. We go out and say, we'd like to build a new school. If you support this, you're going to raise your taxes. And that's a referendum approved that. This is not. This is just, what we're doing is just spreading out the cost of, paying for these improvements. This is, as Mark mentioned, is inside our revenue limit, so it doesn't actually change our taxes. It just enables us to do a big project this year and spread the cost over multiple years. Because if we want to do these projects inside the revenue limit, we'd have to find $2.7 million in the rest of the budget in 1 year to finance these projects, and obviously that's a problem. So instead, what we have to do is we end up finding, $150,000 out of the budget each year for 20 years to fund that. But it does not affect the taxes.
And the referendum we had in spring, after we had a referendum again, that allowed us to increase our tax levy by a certain amount each year, but it's for operations and not a building. So as Peter said, we just can't raise it anytime we want. We have to get approval from the citizens.
Yeah, thank you. I'll definitely pass that on to my friends. But yeah, thank you so much for that.
I really appreciate your interest and understanding of what that means, because I think a lot of students maybe overlook that fact. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah.
Hopefully you understand it, but if you don't, feel free to ask questions outside of the board meeting too.
Of course, yeah.
That's, I totally agree, Eric, and I think that's really well said. What it kind of inspires you to think about, which again with Krishna's schedule, having him at the WSB meeting and being able to go to those workshops. So usually the day before the smaller meetings start, there's like half-day sessions. And they do a half-day session on school finance, which is absolutely excellent. And Dan, do you remember, didn't we bring that and have that done here at one point? I just don't remember, but it's, and WSB may have it taped now. But it's an absolutely excellent program that gives you great background because, again, we took a lot of heat on this referendum in terms of the recurrent language. And understanding that, Katie really helped me just with the language.
Yeah, that's a good point. Virtually most of their presentations now are available virtually or online.
Did we have any more questions for our speaker?
Well, kind of, and my point is just, my point is that I don't mind having to have a special meeting, usually it's very short, if we need to do the, to approve the bond sale, we have done it in the past. Usually it's a pretty straightforward thing, so if it's a lot more work for you to do it this way, then I don't object to having a special meeting. I don't know how the rest of the board feels about it, but, and I don't know if this is a much bigger hassle for anybody, but if it is.
It's pretty much the same work.
Okay.
Either way.
I just have a clarifying question to make sure that I understand what's happening because this is my area of strength and skill.
No worries.
So the reason why we're taking this approach is because we assume that we're going to be able to get a better interest rate somewhere between 2 and 5 years from now. But the risk is that potentially we wouldn't, right?
Correct.
Got it. Thank you. I understand. I just want to make sure I understood what we were looking on.
kind of building off Elizabeth's question, if we don't get a better interest rate 2 or 5 years from now, can we hedge one more time and do another 2 or 5 year?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's our worst case
So the
scenario.
duration is 20 years. Back to Peter's point, under normal Wisconsin laws, you can get up to 25 years using this vehicle. That's not our intent at this point.
Sure.
So there certainly are some stopgaps to alleviate the future burden if it does exist. We hope that it doesn't, right? We don't have a crystal ball. We just believe that looking at historical data,
Mhm.
that it would tell us that, we're going to have an opportunity to
Mhm.
get a better rate and save the district money. And so we feel like that's the best approach at this point in time.
Sure.
Gotta look for that .4 rate we got once. 2 years ago, we got .4.
It's almost free
Yeah.
money.
I know,
It's 3 months.
remember those days?
We had a motion?
Yeah.
No, but I wanted to let you know, thank you for your
Sure.
presentation.
Yeah.
No other questions at
No,
this
yeah.
time.
Oh, what was your,
No.
what was your motion?
I move approval of the resolution authorizing the issuance, establishing parameters for the sale of not to exceed $2.7 million note anticipation notes, Series 2023 pursuant to Section 67.12, Paragraph 1, and B, Wisconsin statutes as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion is carried. We have a motion for adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion is carried, meeting's adjourned.
Oh, we didn't have future meeting dates on this one.
I mean, every motion.
I guess because we just.